You check your account balance. The number is bigger than anything your parents ever had at your age. Bigger than you imagined it would be back when you were 25, eating ramen and telling yourself, someday. And you feel nothing. Maybe a flicker of relief, gone before you've even closed the app. 3 states away, someone with a fraction of what you have checks their own balance, and they feel calm. Actually calm. Like they've got this handled, like the number is enough. Like tonight, they'll sleep fine. That's the part nobody tells you about money. The number in your account has almost nothing to do with how rich you feel. And that gap between what you have and what you feel is quietly costing you the one thing you built all this wealth to get in the first place. Peace of mind. You have more than your parents ever did. More saved, more invested, more security on paper than they could have imagined at your age, working the jobs they worked, retiring on the pensions they had. So why do you feel poorer than they were? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. And you'll understand what the calm person 3 states away actually has that you don't. Hint, it was never the money. Level 1, $50,000. This is where the treadmill starts, and it starts quieter than you'd expect. Picture Marcus, 52 years old, mid-level operations director, 28 years into building a career 1 paycheck at a time. He remembers exactly where he was the day his retirement account crossed $50,000. A Tuesday, checking his phone in the parking lot after a long shift, doing the math twice because he didn't believe it the first time. He and his wife celebrated that weekend. Nothing extravagant, dinner somewhere nicer than usual, a bottle of wine they wouldn't normally buy. For about 6 weeks, Marcus felt genuinely, unmistakably rich. He'd tell people, half joking, that he'd made it. Then the feeling faded, not because anything went wrong, not because the market dropped or a bill came due. It faded because his brain did exactly what brains are built to do. It adapted. The new baseline became normal, and normal doesn't feel like winning. It just feels like Tuesday again. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it is not a personality flaw. It's wiring. The same wiring that made your first apartment feel like a palace, and your third one feel cramped. Every raise, every bonus, every milestone gets absorbed within weeks, and the finish line you were sprinting toward quietly moves another $50,000 down the road every single time. There's a version of this you've probably lived yourself. The first time your paycheck crossed a number you used to think of as rich money. Remember how long the feeling lasted? A week? A month? Now that number is just your baseline, and you're chasing the next one, convinced that one will be the one that finally sticks. Marcus didn't stop feeling rich because he failed. He stopped feeling rich because feeling rich was never designed to last past the moment you reach it. The finish line runs when you run. Level 2, $250,000. This is where the treadmill gets a name, the comparison trap, and where it sets its hook. By the time Marcus crossed $250,000 in retirement savings, something had quietly shifted in who he was measuring himself against. Early on in his 30s, he compared himself to where he used to be, and that felt good, because the trend line only went up. Broke college kid to homeowner, homeowner to saver. The comparison was against his own past, and his own past always lost. But somewhere around this level, the comparison target changed. Not on purpose. It just happened, the way it happens to almost everyone once the basic fear of will I survive starts to fade. Marcus started comparing himself to where other people were, right now. Not strangers, peers. A neighbor who just financed a lake house he clearly couldn't afford, but seemed to be enjoying anyway. A coworker, Jake, 49, who mentioned, a little too casually over coffee in the break room, that his portfolio had just crossed 7 figures. Jake wasn't bragging. He didn't need to. The number did the talking for him, and Marcus felt it land like a gut punch he couldn't fully explain, not even to himself. Not even that night lying awake next to his sleeping wife. Here's what makes it worse. Jake didn't get there by being smarter than Marcus. He inherited a chunk of it from his father-in-law's business sale, put it in index funds a decade before Marcus started seriously saving, and never touched it. Marcus doesn't know this part. All he knows is the number, and the number is doing all the damage on its own. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Research on reference groups shows a consistent, almost mechanical pattern. People who earn and save more tend to compare themselves upward to the next tax bracket, the next tier of net worth, the next Jake. People who earn and save less tend to compare themselves sideways to others in roughly their own position, their own neighborhood, their own church parking lot. That single difference flips who feels secure. Marcus, sitting on $250,000, more than most Americans will ever save, is measuring himself against Jake's 7 figures and coming up short in his own head. Meanwhile, someone with a fraction of Marcus's savings is measuring themselves against their own peer group, their own street, and coming up even, or ahead. The comparison, not the balance, is what decides the feeling. Marcus has more money than 90% of the country. He feels like he's behind. Level 3. $750,000. This is where the anxiety doesn't disappear the way Marcus expected. It changes shape entirely. Marcus had always assumed that once he hit real money, the kind of number that used to feel impossible from where he started, the worry would finally stop. That's the whole promise, isn't it? Save enough, and the fear goes away. It didn't stop. It transformed into something quieter and, in some ways, worse. In his 20s and 30s, the fear was simple and loud. Will I have enough? Will I survive a bad year? A layoff? A surprise medical bill? That fear is unpleasant, but it's also motivating. It has a clear target, a clear finish line, a clear action to take. Save more, work harder, close the gap. At $750,000, a new, quieter fear moved in and took its place. Will I lose this? Market downturns that used to be background noise on the evening news now feel deeply personal. A 10% drop on $50,000 is $5,000. Annoying, forgettable by next month. A 10% drop on $750,000 is $75,000. An entire year's household income gone on a red Tuesday, and Marcus finds himself checking his portfolio at midnight, doing math he never used to do, running scenarios about a downturn that hasn't even happened yet and might never happen. His wife notices before he does. "You've got more than we've ever had," she tells him one night, "and you seem more stressed than when we had nothing." She's not wrong, and Marcus doesn't have a good answer for her. He tries to explain it and can't quite land the words. How do you explain to someone that the money didn't fix the fear, it just gave the fear something bigger to attach itself to? This is the anxiety transfer, and it is the cruelest trick wealth plays on the people who build it. You don't accumulate enough money to escape worry. You accumulate enough money to trade one worry for a worse one, because now there is something real, something substantial sitting on the table to lose. The stakes went up, and the fear went up right along with them. There's a particular kind of insomnia that only shows up once you have something to protect. Marcus didn't have it at $50,000. He has it now at $750,000, and it's not because he's less capable of handling stress. It's because the math of loss changed, and nobody warned him that more would come with a heavier shadow attached. Level 4. This is where the paradox flips completely, and it's the part of this video that will actually change how you feel about your own number. Meet a woman named Elena. 41 years old, a nurse in a mid-sized hospital, household income around $58,000 a year. On paper next to Marcus, Elena has less than a tenth of what he's saved. By every account balance measure this video has walked through, Marcus is dramatically, obviously richer. But ask Elena how secure she feels about her financial future, and she'll tell you, without hesitation, genuinely secure, calm. Not anxious about money the way Marcus is, not checking anything at midnight, not running scenarios about downturns that haven't happened. What does Elena have that Marcus, with 13 times her savings, doesn't? 3 things, and none of them show up on a bank statement. First, Elena has a hard ceiling on comparison. Her peer group, other nurses on her floor, her neighborhood, the families at her church, isn't chasing 7-figure portfolios or lake houses on financing. Her enough is defined locally by the people actually around her. And locally, she's doing fine, maybe better than fine. She has never once measured herself against a Jake, because no Jake exists in her world. There's no 7-figure coworker casually mentioning numbers over coffee. The comparison trap simply has no hook to catch her on. Second, Elena has a fixed definition of enough, and she wrote it down years ago on a single sheet of paper she still keeps in a kitchen drawer. A specific number tied to a specific lifestyle, calculated once and revisited rarely. Every dollar past her baseline expenses goes straight toward that fixed target without renegotiation, without the target quietly creeping upward the way Marcus's has again and again, every time he closes a gap only to discover a new one waiting on the other side. Third, and this is the one that matters most, the one this entire video has been building toward, Elena has already answered the question Marcus is still asking himself at midnight. She knows exactly what would have to go wrong for her to be in real trouble. A specific job loss scenario, a specific health event, a specific dollar amount of emergency runway calculated down to the month. She's built a plan around that exact scenario, and then, crucially, she stopped thinking about it. Marcus has more money than Elena will likely ever have, but he has less clarity than Elena about what safe actually means for his own life, and it's the uncertainty, not the balance, that's keeping him up at night. Level 5. The Reset. This is the level where Marcus stops being a cautionary tale and starts being a roadmap, because the fix isn't complicated, even though almost nobody does it. 6 months after that sleepless night, Marcus does something Elena did years earlier. He sits down at his kitchen table, alone, on a Sunday morning with a notepad instead of a spreadsheet, and he writes down an actual number, not a moving target, not as much as possible. A specific figure, the amount that, if he had it, he would consider himself done chasing. He writes down what it would take to cover his and his wife's expenses for the rest of their lives, with a cushion for the things that go wrong. It takes him 3 attempts to get the number to feel true instead of arbitrary. The first attempt is too low, fear-based, a number he picked because it felt safe rather than because he'd actually calculated it. The second is too high, inflated by a mental image of Jake's account he still can't quite shake. The third attempt, the one he keeps, comes from actually running the numbers on his real expenses, his real timeline, his real risk tolerance, with no reference to anyone else's balance at all. He tapes the number to the inside of his closet door, where he'll see it every morning getting dressed, not on his phone, where a stock alert could hijack it, not in a spreadsheet, where it's easy to quietly edit upward, on paper, fixed, boring, deliberately hard to change on impulse. The next time Jake mentions a number in the break room, Marcus notices something different happen in his own chest. Not nothing. Old habits don't vanish that fast. But something smaller. A flicker instead of a gut punch. Because Jake's number isn't Marcus's number anymore. It was never actually relevant to whether Marcus himself is safe. It only felt relevant because Marcus hadn't yet defined what safe meant on his own terms. This is the part almost nobody tells you. The fix for feeling poor, despite having more, isn't earning more. Marcus proved that already. He tripled his savings between level 1 and level 3, and felt worse, not better, the whole way up. The fix is defining enough before the number gets there, the way Elena did from the start, instead of chasing a finish line that keeps sprinting away from you. That's the open loop from the very beginning of this video, closed. The person with less can feel calmer than the person with more, because feeling rich was never actually about the number sitting in the account. It's about the gap between what you have and what you've clearly specifically defined as enough, and whether that definition ever holds still long enough to actually land, to actually let you exhale. So go back to the 2 people from the start of this video. The one with the bigger balance who felt nothing when they checked their account. The one with the smaller balance who felt calm. Same country, same year, same economy, same interest rates, same inflation headlines. The difference was never the money. It was that one of them had defined enough in writing and refused to let it move. And the other was still chasing a number that quietly moves every single time someone else's number gets bigger. You have more than your parents ever did. That fact alone was never going to be the thing that made you feel rich, and by now, you understand why. What will make you feel rich is picking a number, a real one, specific, written down somewhere you'll actually look at it again, taped somewhere ordinary and impossible to quietly edit, that you decide on your own terms is enough. And then refusing to let it move the next time a neighbor's lake house or a coworker's 7 figures tries to move it for you. That decision costs nothing. It doesn't require another raise, another bonus, another $50,000 saved. And it's worth more, by a wide margin, than the next $50,000 you put away. because Marcus already had that 50,000 several times over, and it hadn't bought him a single peaceful night's sleep. Elena has a fraction of it and sleeps fine. Marcus eventually learns to sleep fine too, not because his balance changed, but because his definition finally did. The number was never the point. The definition was. And that's a decision you can make tonight, for free, whatever your own account balance happens to say right now.